But that's often what's going on at the base of being afraid of commitment. We're afraid of something shitty happening on the other side of a commitment not going the way we want it to. You're listening to the Everyday Legends podcast, the show that is dedicated to helping everyday men build legendary relationships with yourself, your partner, and your world. I'm your host, Mike Campbell, and the aim of this podcast is simple: to help you navigate life with more clarity, more confidence, and purpose-driven action, with plenty of stories, a load of lessons, and some loving straight talk. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Everyday Legends podcast. I am your host, Mike Campbell, and today I'm bringing you another solo episode, a powerful subject, one that I have been needing to, requested to do for quite some time, many times actually requested now. And it's a subject that's very close to my heart, very close to my work, and very central and important to me, and that is commitment. We're going to explore that. Now, I mean, when you say that word, it often kind of more frequently, I think, falls into the realm of relationships. So we'll certainly talk about it in that area, but we'll expand upon that. We'll break down, we'll look at commitment, and I'll share some stories of my own. But before I do that, let's segue with that touch on relationships. If relationships are something for you to be working on, improving on, where you want to create, build a great relationship, be the best partner you can, and really understand commitment around it, then you're lucky, brother, because I have a brand new free website, brand new free webinar coming up. And it is 5 easy steps to being a great partner and working out what the fuck that even is. Now, depending, of course, on when you're hearing and consuming this podcast, if you listen to it around the release date, then that free webinar is coming up on September the 9th. 2021, all the information on how you can access it, on the time, the date, relative to your time zone, you'll find on my website or the webpage for this podcast episode. 5 easy steps on how to be a great partner and how to figure out what the fuck that even is. I can't wait to explore that, because that is the kind of questioning that I get asked most from guys on my emails and on my socials, is around their relationships, or maybe not the relationship that they're in, but making sense of the relationship that they were just in that has ended, or the patterns that keep repeating on the relationships that don't work out. And so we often think about relationships in a pretty weird way, to be honest. And so all of it fundamentally comes back to you. Who and how are you in relationship? Because that's all you can control. That's what we're going to look at and one simple clue. But we'll also look at some other stuff around, like, for example, what women want. Now, I will use that heteronormative language. It's not just for straight men, because what we'll in part be exploring when I talk about the women, there is the feminine. So if you're a gay dude listens to this, then it can very much support you as well, because again, we're going to look at you, who and how you can be. Very, very important stuff. So head over to the website, register, come and join me, and bring all your questions, and we will dive into that webinar on being a great partner. And now back to this podcast, commitment. So where I want to start, where I want to take you to start with for this episode is a story. And that is a story of my own. I'm really starting to appreciate that, you guys, not just on the podcast, but on all my content, really appreciate and land with some of my own stories and how I navigate some of these topics. The last thing that I want my work and my content to be about is like, hey, I'm a dude who has got some ideas. This is how you should live your life. Do this and do this and do this. Not at all. Everything that I'm talking about is stuff that I've learned for myself and been through myself, and or at the very least put myself through to test. Because I don't want to be the guy who is, I'm perfect and do it. No, of course not. Fucking hell. I have got my shit. I am working on my shit. And guess where? Most of that comes up in my relationships, not just my romantic relationship with my wife, but in my other relationships, family, of my father, for sure. So here is a story we're going to explore. And it's this. Well, where it starts is a question. Why did I sleep on the couch? And perhaps the extension of that is this. Why did I choose to sleep on the couch? It's certainly the question that my wife asked me in the morning after, the initial frostiness and coldness, I suppose, and just a slight awkwardness had dissipated. Anyway, and the previous night, this is what happened. I had brought up a touchy, sensitive subject, let's say, an uncomfortable conversation and topic. And the thing is, that's a personal requirement of mine. Perhaps that's a topic for another day around personal requirements, but I have a personal requirement that I ask the question that is on my mind, that I have the conversation that I need to have. Now, I had that conversation. It was a question, and the answer that came from my wife wasn't one that I wanted to hear. In fact, the follow-up statement from that, even more so. And I was quite taken aback, really quite impacted by that. And quite soon after that, and I mean like in the next kind of 10, 20 seconds, I felt this sadness come over me, a heaviness. And I expressed that to my wife, to Nadia. If you guys don't know, hey, Nadia is my wife. I'll use her name. It might just be easier. I expressed this to her and I allowed myself to feel it. I was like, I need to feel this is fucking heavy and shit. And I need to feel whatever this is. And it was this choice to feel my feelings that led me to leaving the bedroom, going into the lounge. We were at this stage, this is historical, but we were in a 1-bedroom apartment. Going into the lounge, rearranging the couch cushions and creating my bed for the night. And the context of that is it was bedtime. It wasn't 3 p.m. Now, what happened next was a bit of seated introspection. I sat and I connected to what was going on, what I was experiencing, and felt what was really there for me to feel. And then I got out my journal and I sat down and I wrote in about 30 minutes of just downloading what was going on in my head, what I was experiencing. And then I hit the couch for the night. Now, the thing is about that situation right there, in that moment, regardless of what was going on for her, for Nadia, I needed space more than anything. I needed to be alone with my thoughts and my emotions to process and figure out what the fuck was just going on for me. So I took that space, I created it and I took it. I spent some time alone and I reflected. Now, I want to be clear. This is not to be mistaken with running from an issue that was fucking uncomfortable, that I don't want to talk about or deal with, and burying my head in the sand, but a conscious decision to distance myself so I could process, so I could understand, so I could feel, get the message that was there for me, and then come back to the issue. So side note, tangent, if you ask for space or you take it, you've got to be the one who comes back. Now, went to sleep, and the morning eventually comes. Now, it wasn't instant rainbows and unicorn farts, but when we stepped into a shared space, we had the conversation that needed to be had. And as I started this, why did you sleep on the couch? But the next step after that was one of lightness, was one of love and compassion. And why was that? Well, because I had to do me before I could do us. I created that space I needed in that moment so that there wasn't this kind of bitter tasting canyon, between us for days after. But that's not even the major reason. That being, in short, because I give a fuck. I knew I needed to take my own space because I give a fuck about us getting back to love and compassion and kindness immediately. And I think more pertinently for this conversation, I give a fuck because commitment. I chose that course of action, heading out, creating space, sleeping on the couch, not because I wanted to run, not because I wanted to appease or keep the peace or not ruffle any feathers, right, and say something that I shouldn't say in the moment, which would be very easy to do, just to run away and avoid that kind of short-term pain or discomfort, but because of the commitments that underpin me, i.e. my own commitments to myself and my marriage. These being commitments that I have made to my wife to be the rock that stands grounded with power, with strength. It won't fold at the first sign of resistance or challenging discomfort. Now, I want to clarify that. But what, Mike, you legged it in that moment and went and sat on the couch. No, I knew that I needed to sit and figure something out so I could show up powerfully. I didn't run from it via vomiting my feelings at her or just ignoring it forever. My commitment is I am going to be strong and grounded. You can depend on me. So that means figuring out my shit, owning it, and showing up from that place. And the commitments I have with myself to ask the question that needs asking, to feel my feelings, to have the conversation that needs to be had, and to ensure I can do me so then I can better do us. As a men's coach, what I see for many guys, and myself a lot too, certainly a hell of a lot more in the past, is that these kinds of boundaries are completely missing. We don't learn them, we don't witness them growing up, right? You only learn about boundaries and relating like this by what you witness. So instead, what happens is we try to appease in the moment or make peace for the sake of it. We swallow what has come up for us or in us, and enter into some kind of low-level resentment or pettiness or finger pointing or passive communication. You know, this kind of like notice my suffering, like the loudest sigh in the room. Oh, right, notice how pissed off I am. Or inappropriate, ineffective, kind of anger leaning, vomiting of emotions at someone else and making them responsible for it. Those are the actions of, and I say this without judgment, but an assessment of what's going on, the immature little boy inside of us. The dude who has not yet learnt this stuff. He is reacting and pushing back. Or, and in some levels it's the same thing, the weak man who is losing himself to make peace so that he isn't wrong or he can avoid an uncomfortable situation. The consequence is the same. Any commitment we have with ourselves or our partner falls away in favor of avoiding the short-term pain, right? The short-term pain of honoring what those commitment involves. My encouragement to the guys out there listening that resonate with that simple or perhaps complex conversations that turn into issues that could be an ocean between you is to respond with the awareness and the maturity of a man doing what's necessary, not reacting like a hurt little boy who's been made to be wrong, who feels really uncomfortable having an emotive conversation, who feels victimized or persecuted for something. But stop. What do I need to do to process right now so I can show up more powerfully, more accurately? Instead of just doing what's easy, stop, think, and then act. The long-term rewards are worth the consistent short-term effort. Now, I want to be clear, an important side note here. I will screw up many more of these similar situations and not do them that accurately or skillfully. I do not have this kind of regulation in all situations, but we must perfect or work to perfect via practice, because of course perfection is unattainable. Consistency, effort in the face of the storm is where that growth comes. Now that's one simple look at commitment. So let me give you another. Roughly 7 years prior to the incident previously, I was in another relationship. I was engaged, and my fiance and I were planning our wedding. Now, for those long-term listeners of this podcast, you would have heard parts of the story scattered around. I'm pretty sure I've shared it a bunch of times. Certainly have on stage and presenting, but pretty sure I've shared it here. So I won't go into depth here. But engaged, fiance, planning wedding, and then one day, while she was in New Zealand at a wedding, I was in Sydney, Australia, where we lived. We'd just moved back from Ireland. I got a call from her, legit, Valentine's Day, February the 14th. I was answered the call, very excited to speak to her because I missed her. And I was to end that call completely fucking shattered, devastated, as she quite simply told me that while she sat watching her friends commit to a life together at a wedding that she was over there for, she realized she couldn't do that with me. She sat through the rest of the wedding and called me the following morning, the most reasonable first opportunity, taking the rest of that night and sleeping on it. Now, the next day, horrible. The next few months were tough, like holy shit, tough. had to, really come to terms with a broken heart and like attempting to wrap my head around how and why all of this had happened, and how I started to heal, or not heal, actually, that wasn't the language. This is how I stopped feeling so shitty. And one of the things that I did was I started to reflect on my part in this and how I could learn from it moving forward. Now, while all of the reflection and personal growth may have helped me to get past that breakup, it didn't really even touch the sides of preparing me to commit to another relationship. Now, I'd done some work on myself prior to that, and throughout that, most definitely that ramped things up for me. But not the kind of work in depth, I suppose, of understanding trust and what entering into the unknown with no real certainty is about. So what happened was a few things. One, I had a bunch of casual relationships. Casual, I use pretty flippantly. For short-term relationships at arm's length. I played around under the guise of, having fun or seeing what's out there. I'm not ready, for a relationship. And which was true. In reality, I wasn't ready for a relationship, but I wasn't being fully honest with what I was saying. The truth was this: I was scared shitless of putting myself out there, truly, of putting my heart out there again. I was afraid of, drumroll please, commitment. But the more accurate thing is this: I was afraid that if I made some kind of commitment, I chose something, even if it wasn't a relationship, but choosing, I want a relationship, actually that statement, that I could be hurt. So there's the fear of being alone, the fear of that any kind of commitment, relationship, giving my heart to someone could be absolutely just fucking dumped on me again, right? But I think the loosest term that it comes down to is I was afraid of being hurt. And so at this point, I'll ask you this: does that sound familiar? And it might not be you, it might not be the situation for you, or the relationship, or the breakup, but that's often what's going on at the base of being afraid of commitment. We're afraid of something shitty happening on the other side of a commitment not going the way we want it to. And we will do things, what this will be speaking to is some kind of a historical wound, some kind of historical fucking thing that went on. And in a relationship sense, what we might start to do is create distance from people. Because if there's distance there, I can't be hurt, right? Relationships at arm's length, or entering into relationships without fully being in it. And I hear that kind of stuff from a lot of women. He's here, but he's not really here. He seems to have one foot out. Why? Because we don't want past pain to happen again. Or we might not have had the breakup situation, but any kind of breakup or relationship not going the way we want it to might mean something about us, that we're not wanted, that there's something wrong with us, that we're not good enough. And that is a big, big, quote unquote, hurt. That's a big piece of pain. So why does this happen? Why do we stumble around commitment? Why do we hear again and again and again, men are afraid of commitment? This is a narrative that has been going on far too long. And part of the problem with this narrative is it exists, and so we take it on board. We think, oh, shit. What is it with commitment? Is there something really fucking big there? Or, yeah, I get to use that as an excuse. I'm afraid of commitment without really fucking digging into it. So here's an invitation. Let's dig into it, brother. So here's the first thing that I want to touch on. Let's go evolution. Commitment is a big fucking deal. And evolutionarily speaking, it is a big deal. So I'm going to use terminology here that might sound like it's genderizing, and it is in part, but I'm going to come back to terms like masculine and feminine, and what I'll even use here more specifically is hunter and gatherer, forager, nurturer. So by and large, not blanket, but by and large, the male of our species evolved as the hunter, as a primary role, but not the only role. Absolutely not. We all have every role. A member of a community has to be whole and integrated to integrate. The thing about hunting is you have to be single focus. You have to have a plan. And if not have a plan, you have to have the skills in order to execute something to achieve a result. Now, if you are providing for the family by killing and hunting, then it is kill or be killed. When you are in the hunt, you have to make a decision and commit to it. You have to make a decision and commit to it because it could mean life or death, i.e. you could be attacked or you might not get the kill and your family, your whānau, your tribe might go hungry. That is hunting, that is providing for the family, the tribe, the community, whatever it is. But not just in hunting, it's also where to live, what path to walk, where to venture as that community unit, right? The hunter, the provider, the embodiment of the masculine by and large in male form, but also obviously in the feminine, in females, because we all have it, is driven to make clear, simple decisions, often through logic and reason, which become intuition the more you practice them. And then we must make a decision and follow through on it, because that is how we will survive. That is a longest, deepest part of our history as humans. We've been humans that sit around in agriculture for about 10 or so thousand years. So the majority of our existence has been in that hunter space. Now, we're not hunters anymore, apart from those obviously who do it for sport, but we're not hunters out of survival. So what does it mean for us modern men? Well, first of all, that is a part of our nature. So it pays to know it and understand it and why and how it plays out. Second of all, this, if you are not centered and grounded in yourself as a man, your role in the community, in your family, in, the wider world, that matters because it sends you off the ability to tap into this. And so what does that mean if you aren't centered and grounded in yourself? Let's touch on a few simple points. If you don't know your values and you are not connected to them with depth of understanding, of accuracy, of what they are, of what they mean to you, of how they manifest for you, of how you live them, therefore you're not truly connected to your integrity and what that is for you. If you're not connected to purpose, grounded in your role and how you show up for yourself, for the world around you, what you give and provide for your family, for your community, then it is very hard to connect to such specific and directed intentions and actions for your life. And so we won't make commitments. We will leave space and wriggle room so that life can kind of decide for us. That is not something that we can depend on in you. So we don't commit because we don't understand the depth of what that requires of us, of what that speaks to. Literally our dependability as a man, the hunter, for the people in my life, even though perhaps it might no longer be that actual hunting mode. It has the instinctual function. So we haven't connected to that. And so we waffle. We don't be specific. We don't, because being specific with a goal, with an intention, requires me to commit to details. Or we do know that commitment on some level, we know that commitment is important. It matters. So we back away from that level of weight because we can't handle it based on what I just discussed. We're not grounded in ourselves and our values and our integrity and purpose. We've never learned it. And so we don't want to fail because we've connected failure to meaning something about me that will prove that I'm no good, not good enough, that something's wrong with me, all of this stuff. And so if I don't commit to specifics, then I can't fail at it. And then I can't be wrong or not worthy or whatever. But, and this is linked here, if I don't set specifics and commit to them and follow through on them, I fail by default. A structure without integrity is weak. This is what we're talking about. And so many men, because we haven't learned this, we have had this shamed out of us. We aren't grounded in ourselves. We don't know what we're about. We don't know what our values are. We value things that we've learnt to value. We value time at work versus creating a career that lightens me, that fuels me, that allows me to provide for my family. There's a connection nuance there. We're not connected to purpose. What brings us purpose? Not having one giant purpose and being the next fucking Nelson Mandela, but living with purpose. And so we can't direct our lives with specificity, with intention, with clear direction. And so we leave wriggle room, or we overcommit. We try and appear to be the man that can commit to everything and can deliver on everything and is capable of everything. We want to appear as a capable man of integrity, of worth, of high value. But there's a big gap there. Overcommitting and under-delivering is not dependable. It's not integrity. It's not strength. It's a weakness, i.e. it is simply showing a weakness in the integrity of the structure that is you. And there's a big difference between appearance and reality. Overcommitting to look like you are capable, but you can't follow through on it, doesn't work. Undercommitting, so you have nothing to actually strive for, so therefore you can't fail, is a lack of any kind of strength and integrity and value system. Either of those speak to a man that can't be true to his word and isn't. And what it speaks to on a very simple level without any kind of judgment is that there is a need there to understand yourself at a much greater level. Understand your word. If you don't know what you truly value and what you're about and who you want to be and what you are in the world and what brings you life, how can you actually understand your word to then follow through on it? You can't connect to the importance of it. So you can't uphold it. So that your commitments can mean something and direct your life with positivity. And those who depend on you for that commitment, for that integrity, especially in things like our romantic relationships. But I want to be clear, it isn't just them. It is kids that we have. It is friends, brothers, partners, family, parents, siblings, workmates, bosses, employees, team members. Commitment is a big deal, brother. But we overcomplicate it. When you know yourself and your word, when you're clear on your values and what brings you purpose, on who you are and who you want to be in the world and what matters to you, it becomes easier. But it is a big deal. We understand this on some instinctual level. If I commit to the thing, I have to follow through on it. I have to stick it out. And so for those men who aren't connected to understanding themselves, they won't do it. We leave wriggle room. But where you leave wriggle room is fucking your life. Brother, where you leave wriggle room is fucking up your life. Now, for clarity's sake, I say wriggle room, wiggle room, whatever you want. It's the same thing. Leaving wriggle room, not being specific, shows me a gap, a creak, a crack in integrity. And if you put this in a relationship, it's a clear indicator of a lack of dependability. Integrity speaks to the strength of a structure, but a structure, as I said before, without integrity is weak. If you have no integrity, if you have cracks in your integrity, if you can't commit to specific things in your life and relationships and follow through, it shows a weakness in your structure. Now, I want to be clear. That's not saying you're fucking weak, you're not worthy as a judgmental, simple assessment. Cracks in integrity are a weakness, and we get to strengthen those. And I want to be clear, in a romantic partner, in a friend, in an employee, in a boss, in a business partner, that is not an appealing trait. It is not showing a man of high worth and value. Not to be mistaken for someone who is pretending that, as I mentioned before. So I want to be clear on this. Your relationship to commitment is something the world, your partner, is taking in on a very subconscious and often very, very conscious level. Can someone trust you, depend on you, feel safe with you? Are you a man who can commit and follow through? So, and there's a lot to that, and we'll touch on it, right? But very simply, be specific, commit to details, follow through with purpose, be accountable, be so goddamn dependable that you can't help but respect and like yourself, certainly if that's the thing that you struggle with. So, back to me. What happened between heartbreak and then sleeping on the couch? 7 years, and a lot, I won't lie, a lot happened. And most of that involved me learning the nature of trust, what love involves, and learning that in order to reach the pointy end of what we really want in life, especially in relationships, we have to be willing to trust, to have confidence that we will be okay. We have to be willing to make commitments and step into the unknown, into uncertainty, knowing that what comes as a result, we are not in control of. I cannot try and control an outcome. I can control my behaviors as I show up. So we have to be willing to step into the unknown, into uncertainty, knowing that what comes as a result, we are not in control of, but only in doing so can we actually reach the spoils. We have to step into the uncertainty, commit and step so we can create what is possible. And that takes willingness and ability, build the ability over time to commit. But when we are resistant to commitment, what we're really showing is a unwillingness to enter into risk. The potential reward in that moment of understanding doesn't outweigh the risk of being hurt, or perhaps feeling like a failure, all those things that I kind of mentioned before, which in case you hadn't connected to is a hurt, quote unquote, that we avoid experiencing. We won't enter into risk because in our head, the risk of hurt is too great for the potential reward. And so you can't sugarcoat this stuff. This is what we fear when we resist commitment, that we might be hurt, that we might experience something unpleasant. Hurt is probably a more obvious and accurate term when it comes to relationships. It might take on some kind of discomfort, shitty experience, failure, whatever, in a different context. It could come as being disappointed, being let down, being backstabbed, being heartbroken in my own experience, or any other number of flavors, twists, appearances. But what it boils down to is that bitter taste, hurt. And this is the nature of trust, knowing that there is risk, but stepping forward with confidence despite the risks. Confidence that says, I'll be okay. I might experience hurt and pain, but I will be okay. And that is one of the things that had to happen for me. I learned to trust myself that I will be okay regardless of the situation. I didn't jump straight back into engagement. No, just ask my wife about that one. I kicked the tires, as it were, for some time around our relationship while I worked on this stuff myself, and it took many conversations with her. But fundamentally, I had to connect to who I was as a man, what I wanted. And one of the things that I wanted was love. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to share my life with someone. That's the reward and everything that can come with that. And so the risk is I might have my heart broken again. And if I step to what I want and I have my heart broken again, it hurts, it sucks, it's shitty. I will be okay. And I can only create that kind of possibility for me, love and connection and all that, by stepping towards it. And I didn't just do that in my head. I had conversations with my partner. I had conversations with Nadia, and we explored that together. What can often happen is that we point to the struggle to commit, the lack of trust, and consequently the attachment to that potential risk. We point that at the other person, at the other party, right? A job, an employer, whatever it is, business partner or our partner. And we say it's something about them, I can't trust in them. Whereas in reality, that responsibility to trust and commit, it begins with yourself. So for me, I had to get to that point where I could commit to my now wife, then girlfriend, with a marriage proposal. I had to trust in myself more than the love I had for her. I had to know that it's in stepping into the unknown of a commitment like marriage, there is a large amount of uncertainty and risk. I had to know that that's okay. that if I want all the goodness that comes with committing to a partner in that way, I had to be willing to risk the downsides, that potential for hurt. And it's in this vulnerability, which let's call it what it also is. It's in this courage that we can take ownership of our trust and the risk that comes with commitment. Not placing it entirely on, is this person right for me? Or what if they leave or cheat or aren't the one? Instead, focusing more like this, knowing how I feel about this person. Am I willing to commit in order to reach the highs and the expansion and the possibility that come with that, even in the face of the risk of being hurt and feeling shitty and whatever else can come with the downside? In that willingness to step into the uncertainty that commitment brings, we are stepping out of the vanilla safety, quote unquote, that we think is safety, of being alone, of keeping distance, of all that stuff, and into the more volatile and risky, yet infinitely rewarding place of possibility. You have to have skin in the game in order to have a chance at the prize. And sure, you could sit on the sidelines, you could watch others, not risk losing the buy-in, but you never get to experience the euphoria of quote unquote winning, to expand this analogy, either. And that is what we're dealing with here. As I believe Michael Jordan so accurately said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Now, sitting on the sidelines might feel like not getting into a relationship. Or for you, it could be being in a relationship half-assed, not allowing yourself to fully be loved. Putting enough time under your belt, or wanting to put enough time under the relationship belt so that therefore you can start to really see if it's going to work, and ignoring your feelings that you really fucking dig this person and you want to spend some considerable and significant more time with them, and give them some assurance, allow them to depend on you. I want to spend more time with you. I would love to be in a relationship with you and see where it goes. My plans are, I want to be married. Fucking claim it, brother. See what happens out the other side of it. Feel the discomfort that comes in that. And I've spoken a lot here about relationships, and you might be sitting there going, Mike, I can commit to loads of things in my life. I just struggle with relationships, right? So yes. Now, it could be something else, right? For others, it could be committing to a job or a house or a city to settle in, somewhere to live, put down roots, to eat some fucking vegetables every goddamn day. I don't know, but perhaps you are good at committing everywhere else, but not when it comes to love. In which case, I would encourage you to look at how you may actually be using those more kind of non-emotional, more cognitive-based commitments to hide behind. There is less risk involved in cognitive, non-emotional commitments, because the emotional risk is the hardest to quantify and feel, especially for men who have pretty stunted capacity when it comes to emotional literacy, regulation, and processing. Committing when it's emotional becomes immeasurably more terrifying, which is why we have to address it. Now, if, however, you simply struggle to commit anywhere in your life, to a meal choice on a menu, to which movie to watch, to what clothes to wear, the job to take, to the fucking undies to wear, then I have two pieces of advice for you. Just fucking start. You must start. So let's break that down a little bit, because I know that's all well and good. This begins with acknowledging that the risk of an unfavorable outcome is always possible. However, to avoid risk is to avoid reward. And so you've got to allow yourself to suck at it. This is going to suck. When you start and you're a beginner at something, it will feel awful, clunky. But you've got to start making decisions and committing to your choices and seeing them through. And when we have this idea that what if it's wrong, here's my invitation to you. Make a commitment and make it right. And make it right by following through on it and learning. Because when you do, you've made a commitment. You're starting to build the muscle of committing to things. If it goes awry, you will be able to move on from that with a lesson. And you'll develop a thicker skin in this sense, which is so fucking vital. Oh, I can commit to things. It's probably going to outweigh over time. That didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to, because you can always learn, make a new decision, make a new commitment, make a new action. And I would point out that you actually can commit. I'll say that again. If you consistently are like, I can't commit to things, I struggle to commit to things, then you're actually committed to being indecisive and risk averse. As paradoxical as that sounds, you are committed to that story. And so if you actually acknowledge that you can commit to something, you can start to use that as evidence to convince yourself to exercise that muscle elsewhere. You've got to break down that story. And you can use it in areas that have more payoffs. But again, start easy. Start where it's doable. Commit to something, follow through on it. Commit to something, follow through on it. Build the habit, build the muscle, build the consistency. Once you do the work on yourself in this form, developing the ability and willingness to step into the field of play and realm of possibility, then the person, the job, the opportunity that fits can come along, and you can start to do that with more competence and more confidence because you've built it up elsewhere. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be easy. Risk is always present. But before that, you're too focused outwardly on the thing being perfect, on you being perfect, on reducing or eliminating risk. And that just isn't life. The moment you think you have that, perfection, risk eliminated, or that you can create that, you are bound to stay frozen or get the rug of life and hurt well and truly pulled out from under you because you're choosing some other kind of a low-level, consistent suffering. All great reward comes with risk. And it is in experiencing the downside of some of those risks that play a huge part in actually enjoying the reward when it comes. We have to experience the breadth of feelings to even be able to enjoy and give relevance and relativity to the good stuff. So not only do lows provide vital perspective and that point of relativity for the highs, but once you've been through the process, once you've been playing the game of stepping into risk, of choosing trust and confidence that you will be okay, of committing, then you're changing for the better. You're actually ready to enjoy the reward. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Look, where in your life is this happening? Where are you not committing? Where are you not being specific? Where are you leaving wriggle room? Why? Why are you doing that? And I'm talking everywhere. Go super, super simple and mundane. We're using language like probably, maybe, like specifics. Fucking commit to specifics, bro. Why are you leaving wriggle room? Why are you not committing to specifics? Explore that. That's not me asking you a question going, don't do it. Actually explore that question and figure out what information is in there for you. You will be able to work with that. When we look beyond the thing, the relationship, the career, living location, fucking meal on the menu, whatever it is, we want to look at, what are you actually afraid of? That you'll get it wrong, that you'll miss out on something? The risk is always there. But you've got to remember, it is the price of admission for the thing you want. So our invitation is to look below the fear of commitment and what is actually there. The fear of hurt, voice it. The fear of being dumped and being alone and being abandoned, voice it. Then look, where do you commit to specifics and follow through? Build evidence for yourself that you do this, and then show yourself that you can, and then look at, where can I commit to specifics and follow through? And again, I want to reiterate, it doesn't matter how seemingly insignificant and mundane. Commit to specifics, follow through, set yourself a goal for tomorrow to journal for 5 minutes, to meditate for 10 minutes, to walk for 20 minutes, and follow through on them. Build a body of evidence that shows you and the world you can do this. Committing to specifics is giving yourself the opportunity to show yourself that you can get things done. It requires all of you. And that is self-trust building work. That is confidence and competence in self-building work. It asks you, committing to specifics and following through on them, to have faith in yourself. Even if I don't know how right now, I will follow through and find a way. What space does, space for wriggle room, it requires less of you, so you give less. When a commitment, when a goal, when an intention is vague, that vagueness is giving you opportunity to wriggle out. Room for interpretation is room to wriggle. And so you give less of it. Less attention, less effort, less presence, less respect. So think, where do you do this? And where is it costing you? So here's an example. You look at your week and go, okay, this week I need to be more focused. I want to be more focused. My intention is to be more focused this week. It sounds nice, doesn't it? But what is that? How on earth are you going to do that? Be specific. So it sounds something like this. I am going to allocate 30 minutes each morning to plan my day. And then I will revise for 10 minutes each night on how that went. So I can set myself up for the next day's 30 minutes to plan that day. Be fucking specific. Don't say, I will go to the gym tomorrow. Say, I will train for 45 minutes tomorrow at the gym. I could go to the gym and swipe my card and then leave. There's a wriggle room in that commitment. Be specific. You can see how these specifics are calling you to action, to integrity. This is showing up for yourself. This is building self-trust, self-reliance, self-efficacy. But I want to be clear, you don't have to do all that alone. You get to be supported in that. You get to have accountability from others as you build that muscle. Look at the commitments through your life, small, medium, large, of all magnitudes. And if you need to, back off. If that list is like, I am overcommitting, I have too much on, then ask yourself, why do you do that? And how do I lessen what is on my plate so I can follow through on the most important commitments? My invitation is to make it simple for you to commit and follow through. And therefore you can show yourself that you can follow through. You show yourself dependability and change the story around commitment and integrity and dependability for you and start to perpetuate a new story. And that is how you will start to show up in the world. And the world will reflect that back. You will be seen as dependable to others because you are, not because you're making out that you are. Whereas lack of commitment is giving you room. And this is what is often happening. I see this all the time for guys with that space and specificity, with that wriggle room. It is giving room for life to decide for you and almost remove the responsibility from you of having to make a decision. And the analogy I've used in the past is it's like so many guys that fall into this place are like a leaf in the wind, just ready to be blown any which way the wind wants to fucking go. Make decisions. Anchor yourself to something, follow through. That does not mean be stubborn. That does not mean be inflexible. But when you commit to specifics and follow through on them, despite how it might work out, you give yourself the ability to make clearer decisions, to know if you need to flex. Integrity isn't being inflexible. As I said earlier, a structure that has no integrity is weak. And the analogy or the image that comes to mind right now is a documentary that I've seen on high rises in Tokyo. Those things have huge structural integrity, but they're not rigid. They can't be rigid. Or in an earthquake, they would shatter. They have to have flexibility in that structure, in that integrity, so they can bend with what the world has. This is what we're talking about for you. Brother, what do you want for your life? What do you want for your life? And do you want life and other people to decide your fate and your feelings for you? If so, why? Why do you not want to decide for yourself? Or do you want to chart a life for yourself? Do you want to chart a course and sail it and allow others who want to be part of that course to join it. Because if that sounds more like you, even if you have no fucking idea right now how to do that and manifest it and create it, start. Make small commitments. A ship needs to set sail, or it's just a collection of raw materials getting wet. Don't just get wet, brother. Go somewhere of your choosing. That is my little piece on commitment for you this week. I hope you can understand that it's a big subject. There's depth to it. But I want you to have something in here that you can reflect on for yourself, dig into, challenge some stories, and take action on. That is my intention for you. Now, as a reminder, a big part of this context was around relationships, as it is for so many men. If you want support from me on that, then the simplest thing right now, depending on when you're listening to this, is to join us for my free upcoming webinar, 5 easy steps to being a great partner, and actually how to figure out what the fuck that even is. We might be looking at integrity. We might be looking at commitment, hint, hint. Now, if it's after that date, September the 9th, then you'll be able to access that at some point, depending on, again, when you're listening to this, for free as a replay on my website. So make sure you go and check that out if you're listening to this after September 2021. As always, listen to this, consume it, reflect on it, and put it into action. That is my desire for you when it comes to this work. Awareness is great. Action is necessary. And with that, I will sign off. Thank you for those of you who've given us 5-star reviews on iTunes. Your reviews are hugely impactful and important and appreciated. And if you haven't left one yet, please jump over and do so. They help us get this in front of more eyes and ears. Until next time, I'm Mike Campbell, and let's remember to build that legendary integrity. You've been listening to the Everyday Legends podcast, the show dedicated to helping everyday men build legendary relationships with yourself, with your partners, and in your world. If you have got something from this podcast, please share it with someone that you think could benefit from it. And please visit your home for podcasts. Like us, subscribe to us, leave us a review. Your feedback is phenomenal in getting this in front of more eyes and ears. Until next time, I'm Mike Campbell, and remember to build that legendary integrity.